Good day, and welcome to Organizational Behavior. My name is Dr. Linda Kiltz, and each week I will probably do a short presentation around a topic that's relevant to the week that might be a little bit different than the course readings, that will offer a different perspective. I might integrate a Christian perspective of one of the topics or current events that we might be talking about. And so this week I'd like to talk about callings and organizational behavior. Many people feel trapped in work that provides a paycheck but little else. They find they have little opportunity to use their gifts or do anything that is personally meaningful. Have you ever reached a point in your life where you know that what you're doing is just not enough? Have you ever been at wit's end trying to figure out your calling? Our primary calling is to be in personal relationship with God, but you may be wondering, what should I do with my life? Sometimes our life situations create a sense of needing to do something, to find work that fits and brings a sense of purpose to our lives. You may even feel restless and something that is making you to take action. So you might be wondering, what is it that I should be doing? What is my calling? Identifying our calling in life is important for our own personal and spiritual development and growth, but also critical in finding work in organizations that aligns with our values and beliefs. The idea of a calling is so central to one's identity in connection with his or her work that casts a deeper and different light on a range of work-related behaviors that are part of organizational behavior. Research on callings has highlighted that the motivation, satisfaction, career self-assessment, and development of people with a sense of calling tends to be different than those who view their work merely as a job. And we have all seen people who see their work merely as a job and they're collecting a paycheck. In this presentation, I would like to talk about the definition of callings and the features of callings. Next, I will link this concept with the religious and occupation-related perspective on callings, and I will highlight some of the implications for organizational behavior. And finally, I will identify a few strategies you might use to discover your own calling. First of all, let's look at a definition of calling that was provided by Pinder and McLean in 2010. They define calling as a course of action in pursuit of pro-social intentions, embodying the convergence of an individual's sense of what he or she would like to do, should do, and actually does. While this term callings has been used in different ways over time, there are three fundamental features that have stayed constant over all of these interpretations. First, all interpretations suggest an orientation towards action. Second, they feature a sense of clarity of purpose and personal mission. And third, they imply a pro-social intention as perceived by the individual. So the three features again are action orientation, sense of clarity, and pro-social intention. So what do we mean by each one of these? When we talk about action orientation, it always perhaps suggests a call to action. It's an emphasis on doing rather than simply being. Specifically, a calling refers to a course of action, which is often a service task and activity to be done. Whether one is called to a specific way of life by divine design or by a sense of self-awareness and an inner compass, the implicit focus is on what one does. Thus, while beliefs, attitudes, and values are essential and ever present, the concept of callings per se focuses on the actions they motivate. So you're motivated to specific actions, whether it's to help with cleaning up the environment, to helping the poor, to helping the elderly. You have a passion for doing that and for helping, and you're motivated to move to act on that calling. Another major feature is this sense of clarity of purpose and personal mission. Calling suggests a certain sense of clarity of purpose, direction, meaning, and personal mission, such that the one who is called identifies fully with the course of action. Several researchers have noted how the notion of self-concept, purpose, action, identity, and callings are all intricately intertwined. In fact, some have suggested that those who have found their calling derive their sense of identity from what they do, meaning you are what you do. So you get your meaning in life by that which you do in the workplace. And many people can identify with that, whether they're teachers or people who have served in the military or in the nonprofit sector, oftentimes say that that is their calling. Another primary feature is those it has pro-social intentions. And this conceptualization of callings is pro-social intentions means it's a desire to make the world a better place. In other words, not only is there a sense of personal purpose in a calling, but that purpose is to varying degrees other focus, specifically um, that you want to do things that make your community stronger, your state stronger, or the world just a better place to live. Oftentimes, callings are associated with serving others altruistically. Grant wrote that employees who see their work as a calling want their efforts to make the world a better place, whereas employees with other orientations toward work usually do not, and their other focuses could be merely on making as much money as possible or being fulfilled in other ways. Maybe it's just personal fulfillment versus helping others. Another element I'd like to talk to you a little bit about is the history of callings from a Judeo Christian perspective. The earliest reference to the notion of calling is grounded in the Judeo Christian tradition. The Hebrew and Greek verbs translated as call, the adjectives are translated as called, and the nouns are rendered as call or vocation, occur frequently in the Hebrew and Christian scriptures. For example, James and John are called by Jesus to be disciples in the Gospel according to Mark. There is a strong sense of connection between being called and being chosen or selected. In all of this, being called or having a calling is linked to one's ultimate mission or destiny, or in later Christian understanding, one is called to a new life in Christ. For example, in Paul's letters to the Romans, the predominant meaning of a calling was to summon people to a life in Christ and discipleship. Hence, in its earliest form, this interpretation of a calling is rooted in religion, both in terms of the source of the calling and in the nature of the activity, but it is independent of one's occupation. So this initial idea was it's grounded in this religious tradition in which we are called to serve Christ in some capacity. And initially, this idea of callings was to perhaps join the religious orders in order to serve the church. However, this has been interpreted differently, obviously, in more secular and modern times. It was not until later in the development of the institutional church where notions of callings became associated with concept of one's occupation. The modern notion of a calling, which was declared by Weber to be a product of the Reformation, began when Luther rejected the ecclesiastical understanding of a calling. He interpreted 1 Corinthians, which states everyone should remain in a state in which he was called. In fact, this is in fact an injunction against the notion prevailing in his time that responding to one's call meant abandoning one's previous way of life and taking up on the life of a religious nature, as a member of the clergy, for example, or by being a missionary or joining a monastery. However, Luther suggested there's something else, that you can have an occupation and still be called to serve Christ. Instead, Luther insisted that living out one's vocation means living out faithfully the responsibilities of whatever office or station in life one finds himself in. Luther maintained that all stations in which it is possible to live honestly are divine vocations. So, this idea of callings has been a little bit different, which is very different. So we might be called to various different occupations, and that as long as we live in the manner that is in alignment with our value system and with our faith system, that we can in fact be called to a specific type of job. which is very important to understand and has important implications to organizational behavior. Amongst these, if you're hiring somebody who has a calling to work as a teacher, for example, versus somebody who's doing it just to get a paycheck, they might have very different relationships to their work environment. Those who are called to a specific type of vocation, according to the research tends to have higher motivation. This idea that they're positively motivated, most of the time it's intrinsic motivation. So it's more likely that it's going to have a greater and more positive influence on the overall work environment. And they also have this higher level, like I said, of intrinsic satisfaction with their work. So they're not employees that have a calling to a specific job may be less motivated by extrinsic rewards such as higher pay or benefits because they're intrinsically rewarded by the nature of the job where they're helping other people. You also get higher levels of job satisfaction because when you're engaged in one's calling, you're able to do what you want to do most, and your efforts are deeply fulfilling. People who view their work as a calling report greater life satisfaction, enjoy more satisfaction from their work. In addition, those who are doing work that's based off of their callings report that they have less stress. They're often associated with less depression because they have greater clarity and self concept of what fulfills them the most. And they feel this sense of purpose with the work that they're doing. In fact, if you ignore our calling, that is actually related to having feelings of depression and maybe anger towards yourself, which actually can lead to more stress. Uh, in addition, when we talk about occupational or organizational citizenship behavior, we're talking again that oftentimes those people who come to the workplace uh, as a calling often help the organization function better, are more efficient and effective in their job, and they're completely devoted to the activities that are related to their calling. However, when these individuals are assigned jobs that are and tasks that are away from their calling, they could get depressed um, and they might actually leave the job because they get so disillusioned about doing work that really doesn't align with their values and belief systems. So this is something to consider when you have somebody who's highly motivated to work in a job that has a calling for a job and how that might impact the organizational system as a whole. So things to consider. But also what's important is that you should also be able to discover your own calling so you can have your own development and be satisfied with your own career and vocation. So what are some of the things that you can do to find your passions in life? And some of the things here are some questions you might want to ask about listening to your own lives. I mean, it's sometimes difficult. Our days are filled with busyness to the point where we don't take time to listen to our lives. But if we take time to quiet ourselves and answer the following questions, you will be able to uncover your passion. And so some of the questions include, if money were not an issue, what would you do with your time? What do you love to do and what do you hate to do? And obviously, you want to go and align with work that you absolutely love to do. And the work that you love to do, it should give you energy. What gives you energy and what type of work drains the life out of you? This is very important. If working with other people gives you energy and working by yourself drains you, you might consider careers and vocations in which you're working with people because that energizes you. Also, what do you want to change, shape, and leave better than you found it? Is there something that you're passionate about that you hope to change within your community and your world? I know some individuals that have disabled children or parents, and so they have a passion about helping to build services that help those with disabilities. There's others that might have passion about making the environment better. So they're out doing things that they want to help safeguard the environment around them. What segment of the population are you drawn to help? Some people might be drawn to help the homeless, some might be drawn to children, the elderly, your own age group, a specific group of people overseas. So ask that question. And what do you want to experience, witness, and learn over the course of your life as part of your vocation? So take time and actually answer these questions, and that will help you identify those vocations and occupations that are most in best alignment with your values, beliefs, and perhaps your calling. And then when you're done with that, you can write your own mission statement and turn that mission statement into an action plan. What this does is writing a statement puts a framework to your passion. For example, my mission statement is to encourage, direct, and inspire people to reach their full potential. And I do that. My action plan to do that every day is to provide the highest quality teaching and mentoring to students each and every day. So remember to write a statement for yourself that shows what you're passionate about, and keep it simple, and also keep it very general, and that a mission statement is something that is changeable and is a living document that may change over time. And the other thing is, once you answer these questions and have a mission statement, put your passion into action. When you have discovered your passion and written your mission statement, you should develop ideas on what to do with your passion. It's time to devise a plan to make your dreams a reality. And you do this by developing an action plan. And you can do this by every week or every quarter, identifying those things that you can do and would like to do and achieve over a period of months or over a period of 1 or 2 years. So, for example, right now, I run an organic farm operation and I'm really passionate about raising grass-fed beef and apples and vegetables in the most sustainable way possible. So I'm taking ongoing educational classes at the local community college about the best organic farming practices that allow me to grow more in the smallest amount of space possible with the least amount of water used. So I'm trying to use technology and the latest science to have the most efficient farming operation that I can. And most of the food we grow, about 50% of it is then donated back into the community to the food bank. And so putting those types of action plans into action is very, very important. So, in conclusion, I would like to say, live your dreams, identify those things you're passionate about, and discover your callings. Thank you very much.